My name is Pratap. I'm the Professor of Documentary Film and Associate Dean of Research. And one of the really beautiful things about my job is that I get to be a part of helping to cultivate fantastic new ideas in the college's disciplines. That's screen, moving image, photography, sound, and what comes under our design, media and screen schools. So I just wanted to say something about the next hour. I just want to tell you what's going on for the next hour, and then hopefully we'll see if we keep that structure. And we should be complete at about 6:05, and then you're very warmly welcome to a drink and reception afterwards. I particularly encourage any of you in the doctoral community, perhaps from other colleges or other universities, please do stay on for that network. The PhD journey can be quite a singular journey, and the relationships we form are absolutely essential to how we develop our practice. So I'm going to stop in a moment, and then I'm going to hand over to a wonderful selection of our LCC PhD students. Some of you who've, how many of us have seen the exhibition upstairs already? Many? Oh, great. So over half. For those of you who haven't been upstairs, please do go upstairs, because we can talk about these things, but you really want to see, hear, get a flavour of what the work is, and we often call it practice-based research. What those films and ideas, images really look and feel like, and how you relate to them. We really value those responses, and there'll be a chance to interact with the doctoral students who are making that work. And what we haven't done is emphasised the final work. So it's not about showing, the best oil painting, if you like. What we really prize in this degree, this PhD exhibition, is the work in process. So many of the students are, early on into this, you'll discover a few months in, all the way to several years into their work. So some is information. That's part of the beauty of showing the work now, so they can get a bit of an echo back from the communities that we work in. And we really encourage you to engage with that. And obviously, we want to be encouraging, but when things aren't working or we want to give more critical feedback, that's really valuable. So easy for me to say, isn't it? So yes, just encourage you to think about spending a bit of time with the work upstairs as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hand over to Wilma in a moment, who's on this side, and then each of our students have got this wonderful challenge. A PhD doctorate, if it's text-based only, can be like 60,000 words or possibly more. And what I've asked them to do is in 90 seconds to 2 minutes to give a very brief glimpse and insight into an aspect of the idea or the question that really, really speaks to them, really animates them. And why on earth would you spend 3+ years devoted to doctoral research if it didn't speak to a real passion? So we're going to hear those short introductions, and then what I'd like to do with the rest of the time is respond to whatever questions or comments you may have and share that with the panel. If you don't have any questions or comments, we'll go straight to a bit of discussion with us whilst those things sort of bubble up for you. If you see anything that you react particularly strongly to, you might love it, or it might be the opposite, it might be something that's very challenging for you, hold that thought, and when we finish hearing from the panel, I'll take as many comments and questions as we can. How does that sound? You're in the right room. That's what you're expecting. Good. Okay, so we'll start with Wilma.
Hi, my project is called Grey Milk and Lost Kin, and it emerged in my life as a kind of haunting that grew out of my family's denial of their gypsy traveller genealogy, and it was considered a shameful secret and kept hidden for 2 generations. And so placing this lost bloodline at the heart of my research has enabled me to think about haunting as being a search for lost context of the past, and my wanting to understand the social forces and around stigma and shame that kept this aspect of history hidden so long from me. So what I've been doing with the work is to attempt to use this negation as a generative and unruly force to enliven my creative processes and outcomes. And my research is based on the sound archives of the Scottish Gypsy Travellers located at the School of Scottish Studies in Edinburgh. And I knew nothing at all about this vast oral tradition when I first started my research, and I've begun repurposing those sounds and then putting them into new relationships with found footage, field recordings that I've made at the old traveller campsites, and footage that I've shot, and then put those together, and that's what you can see upstairs. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for coming. I'm Mireia, and my research is called Memoria's First Breath. Through my research, I seek to contribute to the ongoing struggle to reclaim, repoliticize, and recover memory in post-Franco Spain. I am working with an inherited archive of transparencies that contain the photographs of my grandfather, and I am also working with the absence, silences, and stories, some few and far between, that were passed down from my family, mainly the women in my family, to me. The focus of my research is on that village, which is Fayó, and it's found in Aragó in Spain, and was flooded in 1967 by the regime, and the population were displaced. So by responding to this archive through a practice of visual arts, I seek to understand the generative power of memory, the stories and the information found in absence and silence. And what I've presented in this exhibition has been a series of prints that are enlarged slides from the archive, as well as a selection of the archive contents, which span over 5,000 transparencies, and from which I've selected the contents of 3 boxes, as well as a sculpture made of almonds, which for me works as a speculative space from which I can reflect on the life building after the loss of place and the loss of history that the people of Fayó and my family experienced, and from which I can experiment on the generative power of memory. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Haiqi. And before I introduce my research, may I ask a question? How many of you have been disturbed by anxiety? Wow, almost everyone. Actually, anxiety disorders can be one of the most common anxiety disorder. And also, it's reported that more than half of the people who suffer from anxiety disorders, they don't seek for professional help. And also, it's reported that during pandemic, people in age group between 18 to 34, they're most likely to be affected by mental illness. So to help with this, as you can see, my research is portraying anxiety disorders in picture books, and exploration into using picture books as an interface between therapists and young adults. So I hope my research can help readers better understand anxiety disorders. And then, so my research questions are, how can illustrators communicate feelings and experience of the mental illness? And also, how can such picture books be used as an interface between therapists and young adults? And based on the psychological research, visual narrative series, and my experience, I have created 2 books, and you can see them upstairs. And thank you for your attention. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming, and thank you for all the students. It's so nice to kind of, just meet other PhD students. My name is Sara Ortolani, and my research documents care between human and the land that they live and work in. Specifically, this research is based in the north of Italy, in the land that is the mouth of the River Po. and it's a land that has always been always had like a very controversial and difficult relationship with human, since it's a man-made land. It's a land that used to be sea and used to be water, and now it's used mostly for agricultural purposes. And it's a land that is really hard to understand how should look like naturally, because it's heavily influenced by the presence of human. So that's why I decided to kind of explore what care is in this context. And it's heavily informed by ecofeminist thinking and indigenous understanding of care, very rooted into post-human philosophy. And so I'm, with my practice, that it's a moving image text and a performative work, I'm exploring and understanding how we can imagine a different relationship with this land and really understand what care means and community means in this context. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thanks again for coming. And I'm Yiqi Zhang, and I'm a fourth year PhD student at LCC. On the right of the image, you can see like a East Asian stereotyped me, and for the left, you can see a range of comic characters, but like drawn and created in different different styles. And this image speaks a little bit about my research topic, which is by engaging with the comic community here at LCC and beyond. I'm hoping to explore, well, how different comic traditions in various cultural contexts across the globe can potentially contribute to the artistic creation of comics from a perspective of a comics author, and how that speak about or tell us more about human communication in the 21st century. I'm a comics artist, so I make comics, and now I'm studying comics. And that brings me to another aspect of my research, which is I'm hoping to investigate how this medium's specificity of comics can deepen or further of our knowledge between, well, the relationship between theory and practice, and how we use. So for me, the comic practice is not only a form that it's not the object of study. It's not the form that I may present my studies, but also I keep like, it's kind of my ambition or my dream is to see how I can use this comics as a research method, the comics practice as a research method to like deepen the knowledge of comic studies. And so thank you again.
Hello, everyone. I'm Berk. I'm a second-year full-time student studying here at LCC, and my research topic is about hybridizing heavy metal and electroacoustic music. My research study consists of basically two parts: practical and theoretical. And on my theoretical part, I mainly focus on musical hybridity, genres, problems about genres, their usage in contemporary setting, as well as setting a critical debate about what I experiment with my practical part. In my practical part, I research and experiment mainly to find set of methods for combining these two genres. And my ultimate goal is to provide it as a blueprint for the hybrid composer, as well as to criticize what is low art and what is high art.
My research involves developing a collaborative creative method of practice with which to compose acousmatic music about contemporary issues. So acousmatic music is composed in the studio using real-world sounds and manipulated sounds and presented to the listener via speakers. So with acousmatic storytelling, which was proposed by Panos Amelides as a method of historical representation, he offers it as combining recorded spoken word with composed sound worlds. And the narrative is presented by combined and coexisting material, audio material, which is made up perhaps archival sounds, referential sounds, like if you live in Sheffield, you know that the cathedral bells miss a ring. Recorded spoken word, which can come from interviews and also from archive material. Field recordings, music quotations, so some composers might use Christmas music to capture a particular place and time, and transform sounds, which is the electroacoustic composer at work. All this material comes out of the speakers, blends, as Amelides says, with the listener's imagination, and the listener is also co-creating, so they complete the work. So what I'm interested in, I saw, having read his article, it's a fantastic article in 2016, really easy and inspiring. I thought I saw a potential for this as potentially a participatory music-making activity for community music, and also a way, because I was collaborating at the time with an eco-critic, to explore contemporary issues like rising sea levels. Thank you.
I am a second-year PhD candidate here at LCC, and my research focuses on the issues of representation of Muslim superheroines in contemporary comics. What I want to examine is how the diversification of the superhero genre has created a space for Muslimah representation to be challenged and offer up a space for more multidimensional and complex characters. My project is theory-based, and I am using G. Willow Wilson's Miss Marvel and Dina Mohamed's Kahira as my case studies. What I'm really interested in is looking at how the authors from these different environments use their own unique lived experiences to create these multidimensional characters for a transnational readership in what is an increasingly globalized world for comics at the moment. Something which I have really enjoyed doing for the past couple of months is using research methods like fan surveys and fan interviews to get a deeper understanding of what fans think of these representations and how they perceive this representation, and hopefully look at how creators, further on in my project, how creators negotiate their own position of power while they write these comics as well. So, yeah.
Good question. Anybody ready to take that one? Yeah, Wilma first, and then. Did you say something?
I think in the first year, it was a bit like free falling, because there was so much stuff that you could use, you know, and so it was very difficult to make the choices at first, but then there's such richness in it, you kind of get better at discerning, I suppose, which methods to use and which ones are the most important. So yeah, I'm still right in the middle of that, but because I'm only a second year, but that's kind of the joy, is the messiness of it as well.
So my background is in literature. So coming to LCC and coming to an art and design school, I was exposed to so many methods, and there was just so much potential in everything you can do with like creativity, using different methods. So first year for me was again like an experience of teaching myself, okay, how can I best make use of all of this which is available to me. But now in second year, it has been such a rich and fruitful experience for me, just learning from people around me, especially from these fan surveys and fan interviews, getting perspectives from people all around the world, and it just has really enriched my research project, and I'm just so excited to take it further.
Upstairs, yours is a text-based doctorate, isn't it? But you've decided to show, I think for the first time, some visual representations. You've been doing your. Do you want to speak to that? Evolving.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, my project is theory-based. It's text-based, and the comic I created was specifically for this exhibition, and that was just. I decided to just have some fun with it, which is again like a joy of doing unfolding narratives. Is it doesn't have to be very refined. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to just show off your research in a way in which you love and do what you enjoy. So, yeah, I decided to create a comic because I'm reading comics all the time now. So, yeah.
Anyone? Yeah, please go ahead.
The same as in my first year, I'm in my third year now. And in my first year, I read lots of theories, especially I don't have psychology background, so I also took some psychological courses, and I read the papers, and also I used the visual metaphor theory and different theories. Then I use the theory to do case studies. So I analyzed many picture books about anxiety, and then try to find some similarities. And then also the short courses in uni helped me a lot, like creative writing. And then I started write my own story and create my own practice. Yeah, and then, well, we need to go back to theory. After all, we are doing a PhD. And so I'm going to collect feedback from therapists and do the data analysis, and then to see what I can get in the end. Yeah, that's my answer.
And Haiqi, your work you created by hand, yes. And you've decided to show it on a 8-screen installation.
So 10.
10, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. Lose 2 screens. 10-screen installation. It's just up on the right when you go up the stairs. Do you want to say something about that? Like, how did you? That's quite a shift.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I started animation in my BA. So when I experiment monoprint one day, I suddenly want to see the image move. So I started to create to add a little bit animation on my illustrations. And I do feel, if you have seen that upstairs, I do feel like the eye movements and the lights, and then also the red monkey. The gentle movements would help of expressing the anxious feelings. Yeah, so that's how it comes.
Does anyone else want to add to this? Or I'm not seeing any. Yeah, let's take. Okay, Mireia, you first, and then we'll come to your comment.
Yes, I've also experienced the, how did you call it? Free-falling experience of the PhD. Personally, I had a very different practice before starting this project, which was a fashion photography practice. And I entered knowing that I wanted to change that, but not knowing where it was going to go. So as my supervisor calls it, I have a becoming artist practice at the moment, which is very interesting and very rich. And at times it's also been very, it felt very uncertain, and the uncertainty can take over the whole process, especially within a PhD. But I have found that after almost 3 years doing it, the uncertainty becomes more of a feeling of potential, rather than a negation of what was before or whatever I'm doing now. And yeah, I just wanted to add that I've also found the act of learning to write and learning to marry my own voice and the way that I experience my research more from an embodied perspective with the academic language has been definitely a challenge, but also a very positive experience of doing this.
Gentleman there, please.
going back, maybe linking also to the type of work that I'm presenting here, I think for me, I can speak for my practice, which I feel very comfortable in the mixed media realm, like all of the things kind of testing things out for me has always been something very comfortable. When I kind of understood that what I'm, as a visual communicator, it doesn't really necessarily interest me if that happens through moving image or drawing or photography. And so I think for me it was really useful thinking of my practice in that way as a way of communicating something. And then you can take whichever form that I think the intention behind kind of suggests. So the work that I presented here was, for my first time, was a more performative type of work, because it kind of made sense in this moment of the research, in this process, to move from more moving image type of work and explore the space between, in my practice, the images and the text, and so open up the liminal space and explore the communicative potential of this space. So I don't know if that answers your question. I think I totally agree that there is like the creative friction, but I think, yeah, for me it was helpful to understand that the core of it was the communication rather than I'm a filmmaker per se. Because I think, yeah, it's such a long process that things will change as a researcher and as a practitioner. So understanding your practice as a way to communicate thought kind of really helped navigate sort of these changes. Yeah.
Thank you. Just linking two questions together. I think the friction between like different media or different medium or different, a mix of methods is what I'm facing as a PhD student on a regular basis. Because, for example, the area I'm studying, like comic studies, is a emerging area. It's not like a wholly established area. I think so is other like discipline that we are studying now. So it's an area that where people just use, like, bring methods from a range of fields in, and then the area like builds on this a mix of methods. So I think for me, like the goal of one of my goals of PhD is not to bring those methods to achieve what I'm hoping to achieve, but also to explore the method itself, to see that how can I use, say, my artist practice and my bringing of these theories to see if there are new methods emerge from this practice. And I think this is one of the joy of PhD too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Go ahead first. Yeah.
With the approaches, I'm collaborating with people. So at the moment, I'm collaborating with a historian of soil science on a work about sustainable food production. And so what I'm doing with my collaborations, or the aim is that I connect with people that have got expert knowledge that's relevant to the subject that we're focusing on, and or personal experience of the subject. So the work that I've got in the exhibition at the moment is someone's experience of trauma and also their knowledge of the environmental issues as an eco-critic. And so it's the synergy that comes from that. So I feel it's a lovely experience to actually collaborate and to connect with people, so that I don't have that expertise, but I bring that expertise into the collaboration and we work together. So that's quite exciting.
There are lots of doctoral candidates in the room, and I'm aware from many that it can sound smooth from the outside, but I think the question was also about the creative friction. And I wonder if you could, any of you, speak to how you handle that tension. So you come along with a particular idea, you test it out, you get exposed to lots of other stuff, other mediums, other ways of looking, and something breaks down and has to let go in order for the new thing to emerge. How do you navigate that? Berk, yeah, thank you.
I think especially when doing a research that combines theoretical and practical, it sometimes can feel a bit separate, but I think right now I'm like halfway there in my PhD, and I start to get a sense of like they're actually a complete thing, and so the way you compose really change after you're like you are on your way on the theoretical part, as well as the way you look at what you research also changes. So I think, yeah, we might say that theory becomes practice and practice becomes theory in a sense.
Yeah, I think just to complement what Berk just said, I have found that trust in the work and just recognizing the role that time plays in this research, especially in a PhD, has been something that I've been able to rely on, or that I have had to learn to rely on, in order to understand that the contradictions and conflicts that are emerging will give way to new understandings and new ways of doing things. So I think kind of like learning to renew your commitment to your work and to your research is something that is a very valuable lesson that I am still learning at this point in my PhD.
Helped you in doing that, relearn your commitment, remake your commitment?
I guess, I don't know, a lot of things. There's been times where I haven't even allowed myself not to think that, well, I don't allow myself not to think that I have to do this. So there's that kind of stubbornness that's very useful, or like delusion sometimes. Of course, the support of the supervisors is always useful, and the people around you. I think about things very collaboratively, and I rely a lot on community. So to be able to share whatever it is you're doing, that's useful. And then you have moments where you can look at it from the outside and you can recognize that it's good, or that it's quite all right. And but that's something that you need to learn to do yourself, because otherwise nobody's going to do it for you.
Thank you. Anyone else wanted to respond to that point? Otherwise, yes, John. Were there any other comments on that? Okay, then we'll go to Jonathan.
Well, thank you for your question. I would like to share my experience. I done my MA at Camberwell, and as an overseas student, I couldn't get used to the Camberwell freestyle teaching structure. Yeah, hopefully there's no Camberwell people here. Oh, sorry. Well,
about this university's colleges, and each college has its own style and may or may not agree with how it's characterized. But anyway, there's a different approach you experience.
Yeah, especially the experience was very different from what I experienced in China. And so I think I should have got anxiety disorder in that period of time. And I really suffered. And while writing the paper, but I didn't know what happened. The thing is, I really didn't know. I blamed on myself a lot. I thought it's a big failure for myself. But a few years after, I worked as a lecturer in China for 3 years. Many students came to me and talked about their anxiety. So I started reading some books. And I realized, wow, I found the reason. So I think my project is for me, also for all the people who may have the similar experience. Because anxiety disorders, they're not that well known as depression, but it's also very common. So sometimes I it's very stressful doing a PhD. So when I feel overwhelmed, I said, that's a symptom. Let me draw it. Yeah, and so that really helped me to manage my own anxiety as well. So that's my answer.
Thank you. And I think looking at the response in the room, about half of us put up their hand when you said, do you experience anxiety? So I think something around breaking that silence and imaging it and bringing that more, surfacing it in our communities is really helpful. And I guess that not everybody does that. Not everybody is able to look at what hurts us, what we suffer, and find a way of transforming that, moving towards that transformation. So, thank you for the gift of that. So Jonathan's question was about impact. Who are you trying to reach? I'm looking at Wilma because I was so struck by the community story that you're discovering, a hidden history in your own family, and now you're trying to bring that out to a broader public.
Well, I suppose what I'm trying to do is look at the knowledge system that the travelling people had in that southwest part of Scotland, which is what my family, the area my family came from, and then try and apply it to my own practice so that it can communicate. I suppose the travelling community in this country are the most oppressed and disadvantaged group in the out of everybody, and it's kind of the last bastion of acceptable racism that people will kind of use racist language and think that isn't a problem. So I guess the wider impact would be that maybe people start to look at the group differently, look at us differently, and that has to occur for me and my family first, in a way, and for me to practice that, for then hopefully it might have some impact first from internally and then out into the world. So.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to come in on this? Yeah, Meher.
First, as you said, first you want to make a change for yourself, to see, okay, this is something which is important to me. This is something which matters to me. So as someone who's Muslim, who's brown, who's an immigrant, seeing that representation mattered to me. But as I was interviewing other people, seeing how it mattered to them to see, young Muslim teens represented in these comics, in this genre, which they've grown up and loved. But at the same time, I've had people said, oh, when I was a kid, I would wish that I was white so I could dress up and look like Superman or Batman. But now my young nieces or nephews, they won't have to wish. So I wish I was white so I could look like a superhero I admire. There's brown superheroes, and hopefully there will be more superheroes from more diverse backgrounds. So, young kids can look up and, so they don't think, oh, I wish I was white so I could look like a superhero. They won't have to, because they will have themselves on there, yeah.
Thank you. That's very clear. Any other comments on this? Go on. Sara, did you want to?
On a related point, I started music with metal, and I started with electric guitar. And when I went on the high school journey and started to check universities, I was really keen on to get on a subject or study which involves rock music or metal music, but unfortunately there isn't many, because I guess it's not considered as worthy of study at the moment. So yeah, I think the journey then started to try to incorporate new things. I then started music technology. Yeah, I started to see the shift in music in general, with hybridity, and I believe the new music would be more about hybrid music rather than just focusing on one.
You're trying to reach a new audience for that.
Yeah, and I also believe that academic communities can be like quite like bubbles. And yeah, we can criticize on that a lot, because why are we then putting a lot of effort and putting a lot of our work if only people gonna hear it is about academics, right?
I'm sure your heavy metal acoustics will get beyond the academic. Well, thanks for that. Sarah, did you want to add?
Maybe just briefly. I think, yeah, as the question was kind of reflecting, obviously, like we all start from like our own practice, our own, observations, and then how to expand it, to academia and beyond. For me, a way of doing that is understanding my practice as teaching practice too, and so kind of understanding that the outcomes of my maybe visual communication practice then could easily end up becoming outcomes of pedagogic practice or teaching and learning, and kind of understanding how then we learn together as a way to move from the singular, of each of our own research to academia, but also beyond, and understand that learning can happen beyond university. And I think and a lot of our subjects are outside, institutions, and so understanding that this learning can happen, beyond that, if it makes sense.
That does, yes. And some of you will be picking up teaching experience on the journey. Is there anyone not from the college who wants to comment or ask a question? Yes, go ahead. So how you find your subjects and the ethics around how you work with those people.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Actually, me and my supervisors spent a long time on working out the ethic part. And so to avoid the ethic issue, so definitely I can't directly interview the patients who have anxiety disorders. There can be lots of problems. So I decided to interview therapists. So therapists, they have professional knowledge and skills, and also they have their own, shall I say, supervisor or something. It's like if they need help in their system, they can easily find help. So I would ask them, how do you feel using this book in therapy, or do you think I have expressed anxiety disorders correctly? So in this way, I can collect feedback.
Thank you. And maybe a word around, have you covered the ethics as well, because they're already involved in the system where there will be protection for those subjects? I think you covered it very well. Thank you.
Yeah,
We've only got just a few more minutes. Professor Paul Lowe, and are there any other? Okay, what is your hand up as well? No, just wave. So Paul, go ahead. That's not a planted question. Anybody want to comment on that then? And there are a number of and there are a number of supervisors of the candidates here, so we're among friends. So yeah.
Thank you. All the three supervisors of my present here, so I may be careful. But the first thing popping in my mind is, do your job well first, because I think like if you, I'm aware that the question, well, like probably like my supervisor won't give me answer to that question that I'm researching exactly. So I'm aware of that. With that awareness, I'm trying to make the most of what they give to me, and like for example, the resources and books to read and the smart tasks that set ahead. But I think like if I respond to them well, they will respond to me like much better than I did. So I think this is like a back and forth. And but if you like I'm still a student, if you do your job, I think this will just go up and up. So it's like a good circle.
Being open to feedback, I think that's really important. I would say with my research, I really have a very clear idea of what it is, and I know what I'm researching. And I think that's really important in my first year, that I remember to be open and flexible and respond and listen, and try things out. I've found always, and I'm very excited with the discussions that happen within my supervision. They're very lively and give me lots to think about. So I think being open is really, really important.
Yeah, I also wanted to say this is in my first year I was quite self-conscious initially in my supervision. It's because I wanted to impress my supervisors. I wanted them to think, wow, yeah, she's supposed to be here for this PhD. But I realized as I go on to be one, obviously you set yourself targets for each supervision, that this is something I want to discuss, but also be open and honest with your supervisors when you are struggling. So I found that passage to say, okay, you've set me this target, but this is something I'm really struggling with, and I need you to give me some extra support here or some extra comments. And they were obviously very open to helping me, because that's a part of supervision. But for me to open myself up to being a bit vulnerable with my supervisors and say, hey, these are the issues I'm having, this is what I'm struggling with, and maybe we need to shift our targets a bit and focus on this particular issue where I need some extra help. That was really valuable, and I think everyone should be open to just being honest with your supervisors if you are struggling, and not just be silent and suffer in silence. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. I totally agree with Mireia. I think just be honest. As that happens, I think for few times I didn't done my work. So I had to email my supervisors in advance, say, sorry, what happened, and probably tomorrow I can't show you what I said I should do. And but my supervisors are very kind, and so I think be honest. And also I have 3 supervisors. The longest meeting was 3 hours. It was a little bit tiring. And so after that, I think, no, we have to control this. So my strategy is I would write down what I want to discuss in the next meeting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like agenda. So during the meeting, I would try to take control, because I have 3. Sometimes I have to cut off. I can't say that. I have to interrupt their talking, or to control the time. Yeah. But I think just be honest, and always summarize what we have done, what we want to do in the future, what supports we lead. Yeah. Thank you.
We're pretty much at time. Are there any last burning? It won't be a question you can get an answer to, but any comments or any other contributions that colleagues want to make? Okay. So huge thank you to everyone exhibiting and our panelists in particular.